Hi guys, welcome to Short Skirts and Sarcasm. I'm Caroline, and I have been feeling down lately because of everything, and I think that a lot of us are, so I thought I would give you a list of books to cheer you up. So I've got 10 books, kind of, and I will go through them in alphabetical order by title. First, I have Bellwether, Mostly Sunny with a Chance of Scattered Hissy Fits by Celia Rivenbark. And Celia Rivenbark is a comedic writer, and these are all essays on the trials of trying to renovate a fixer-upper house. And like the electric wiring is shot, and the plumbing is a nightmare, and the construction crew is made up of what you might call characters. So Celia Rivenbark is a refined Southern lady and meditates on the cultural differences between the South and like the rest of the U.S. and pokes fun at her Yankee transplant neighbors. And Bellwether is another hidden gem that I found in one of my favorite bookstores at home in California ever. And my entire family loves this book, and we will sit around in the evenings and read to each other from it like something out of the 19th century, but with more swear words. Thanks, Celia. This next one is a book that I just finished. I read it on audiobook, and it is Dear Girls by Ali Wong. And Ali Wong is a really hilarious comedian, and she's probably most famous for her Netflix specials, Baby Cobra and Hard Knock Wife. And she did both of these comedy specials while very, very pregnant, one show per each of her daughters. And Dear Girls is an open letter to both of her daughters about the life lessons that she's learned. It is a sordid and hilarious account, and it's also pretty short, so it is a quick read that is funny, uplifting, and cheery. And also very heartfelt. And there is an afterword by her husband / father of the Dear Girls, and it's also like very heartwarming and charming and special, and made me feel fuzzy things. And I wanted to read this since it came out, but what really solidified it as a priority read was Ali Wong's interview on the Not My Job segment of Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, which is a radio show / podcast that I love. And so since then, I was like, I really need to read this book. So I put a library hold on it, and it finally came through. And Ali Wong does read the audiobook herself, and then the afterword by her husband, he also reads that. So it just feels like extra special, and of course extra funny, because Ali Wong has a hilarious comedic presence both on the page and of course with her voice. So why are you waiting? Get to Dear Girls. Tea break. This is Earl Grey, and it is a tea bag for once. I hardly ever drink tea bag tea, but I ran out of my nice loose leaf Earl Grey, and I'm not allowed to buy more tea until I finish some of the ones that I already have. So tea bags it is. This is one of my most read books of all time, and it is 4 Things My Geeky Jock of a Best Friend Must Do in Europe. And it's really, really short, and it's hilarious. This is a YA novella where a shy, sporty girl named Brady takes a coming-of age trip with her mom and struggles to follow the to-do list her extroverted best friend Delia has written on her hand in Sharpie. And this is an epistolary novella, and we get to read all the letters that Brady sends home to Delia, detailing her trying and hilariously failing to follow the to-do list. And this book is so funny, and I like to read it with my mom, and because it's a mother-daughter trip. And my mother and I, back in the before times, used to travel together when travel was, allowed. So we like to take turns reading it aloud. This was something that was in my middle school library that I happened upon, and I read it. And then I did the thing where, like, while I had my loan, I would finish reading it, and then go back to the beginning and start again. And then I decided it was so funny, so good, that I would share it with my mom. And every time I would check it out, we would like read it aloud to each other. And now that I am no longer in middle school, my mom did actually buy the book. So we have it at home. And I missed it so much that I bought the Kindle version, even though it wasn't 99p, which is my usual Kindle buying strategy. So I will probably read it again soon. So this next book is a little bit cheating. It is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, but I would also include Take a Hint, Dani Brown, and After Age, Eve Brown in this recommendation, because all 3 books in the series / companion set are excellent. I am not done reading After Age, Eve Brown, but I am 83% through it right now as we speak, and I will probably finish it today. So I feel very comfortable recommending this because it is also brilliant. My previous attempts at reading romance have been kind of hit and miss, especially because a lot of tropes in the romance genre are toxic, and I don't like that. I am not here for toxic relationships. We like to see healthy, cute relationships. However, Get a Life, Chloe Brown was a 5-star read for me, and so were Dani Brown and Eve Brown. Well, I suspect Eve Brown will be a 5-star read. And for this first book, Get a Life, Chloe Brown, which so far is my favorite of the 3, Chloe Brown is a type A disabled woman who tries to get a life after a near-death experience. And I found Chloe very relatable because I'm also very type A and highly organized, and I could be described as boring, and I frequently have been by other people to my face, so we know it's true. And so Chloe keeps running into her building complex supervisor, Red, and at the most inopportune moments, but she decides that because he's an artist, he might be able to help her get a life. And this is another book that has a to-do list to get out of your comfort zone, which we know from Four Things My Geeky Jacques, My Best Friend Must Do in Europe, is a trope that I love. And the romance that follows this, like getting a life, is very, very cute, and it made me like curl up my toes and giggle. Like, Talia Hibbert is an excellent writer, and she's so funny, and it just warmed my cold, dead heart. I loved it. And it was also very sensitive to abuse survival, which I really, really appreciate. And of course, it has a disabled protagonist, which I also really appreciate. And contrary to the usual setup, the abused party is Red is the man, not Chloe the woman, which I find in other like romance movies or books. It is usually like an abused woman that gets like saved or uplifted by a man, and this is like a reversal / dismantling of that trope. And so just like I loved everything about it. So my next recommendation is a book that I have recommended before, but it is so underrated that I'm gonna mention it and recommend it again, and that is My Cup Runneth Over by Cherry Whychok. And it was just too good to pass up for this video, and it's also really short, so you'll get through it really quickly. It's a YA. It's quite a young YA as well. I think like the protagonist is maybe like 13 or 14, but it's just so delightful. The main character is so funny. It's illustrated. There are recipes. There are literally no downsides to this book. We follow our protagonist, Angel, who has a slightly unhinged home life. She lives in a nice house in Kensington, in Knightsbridge, with her unhinged barrister or ex-barrister father and her really thin ex-model mom. And she feels very self-conscious about her weight because all of her friends who are also delightful are also like very thin and conform to like beauty standards. And through this book, she reconciles her body with herself, and by the end of it, she is happy with herself. And throughout this, she also like cooks a lot, and it's very, very funny. And it's a beautiful story of a group of very close-knit young female friends, and it's heartwarming. And it just like whenever I feel down, like I will pick it up and thumb through it, and it always makes me feel better. So for my next recommendation, this is a nonfiction book, but it's very funny, so stay with me. It is Packing for Mars by Mary Roach. And I've talked about Mary Roach before. Like I said, she's one of my favorite nonfiction writers that I read for fun because she is so funny. And what she does essentially is like find a topic that she wants to know more about and then obsessively researches it and puts it into a hilarious book that is also informative. So, I mean, there's really no way to go wrong with Mary Roach. And this was the first book of hers that I read, and I became aware of her again through Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. For this book specifically, she was the Not My Job guest, and she talked about her research on like space toilets and specifically testing space toilets on a parabolic flight. It sounded traumatizing and hilarious, so I'm glad she did it and I get to read about it. I would not have liked to experience it for myself. So she was on the show in 2012, and I finally read this book in 2015. And it made me want to read the rest of her work. And I still have not gotten through her like back catalog of books, but the other books I have read by her have also been excellent. But I think this one is my favorite. So this is basically, how does life in space work, is her framing question. And she like obsessively researches a bunch of real things and a bunch of hypotheticals. So for example, real things, toilets, how do space toilets work? How do you poop in space? Not something I'd ever wondered about, but now I know. And I'm scarred for life, but I'm also grateful. My next book is a memoir, and it is Shockaholic by Carrie Fisher. And Carrie Fisher's memoirs, I've read all of them now, I think, are hilarious and honest and comforting. And I think Shockaholic is my favorite of the three. And I haven't read any of her fiction yet, but I do plan to, hopefully sometime soon. I say that about all books I want to read. Hopefully sometime soon. Famous last words, but we'll get there eventually. And this is, I think, Fisher's first memoir, and it chronicles her experience with electroshock therapy and how it's impacted her memory specifically. And the living legend that was Carrie Fisher also narrated her own audiobook. So if you are missing some Carrie Fisher sparkle in your life, I would really recommend listening to the audiobooks. She is a constant reminder that even when things are kind of crappy, everything will turn out okay. Another memoir nonfiction is The Witches Are Coming by Lindy West. And Lindy West is a gift, I keep saying. Again, I became aware of her through NPR because, like I said, I'm boring and type A, so of course I listen to NPR. And she was on the Tell Me I'm Fat, This American Life episode where she reads part of her book Shrill. And this is a natural follow-on to Shrill, but where Shrill starts out really, really hilarious and funny and then goes deeper into some dark places in the second half. The Witches Are Coming is hilarious and light throughout. And I listened to the audiobook, which Lindy West narrates herself, and I was snorts laughing. And The Witches Are Coming was one of my favorite books of 2020, and I've written about it on Medium, so I will link that below. But so if you want more information, you can read that. But I will tell you now that my favorite essay in this collection is entitled Ted Bundy is Not Hot, Are You High? And more nonfiction with a bit of true crime. Get it? Because I mentioned Ted Bundy. Yes, I'm very funny. Is Victorians Undone by Catherine Hughes. And the full title of this is Victorians Undone, Tales of the Flesh in the Age of Decorum. And this is a light history book that goes through the slightly humorous unspoken layers of the Victorian age, such as Charles Darwin's beard and flatulence. It's charming. And the last chapter is about some Victorian true crime, which does involve a child, so beware of that if you are sensitive to violence against children. But overall, this book is like very light and very informative, and it's a nice way to pass the time. And also, since each of the chapters are a self-contained snippet of Victorian drama, it's really easy to dip in and out. They don't follow on from each other, so you don't need to read them all at once. You don't need to read them in order either, I don't think. So for example, you could read the last chapter first if you wanted to get that out of the way, which is the one with the child murder. My last book is Wow, No Thank You by Samantha Irby. And this is another snort laugh essay collection memoir. And I read this in 2020 and I am really glad I did. I was pulled in by the cute bunny on the front and the title, Wow, No Thank You, because I feel like that is my reaction to a lot of things. And Samantha Irby chronicles her life as a wife and stepmom and talks about the joys of getting older and being mistaken for Roxane Gay. And the essay Hello 911 is my favorite. Hello 911, my friend just left me a voicemail. Hello 911, this takeout spot doesn't have online ordering. Hello 911, I am unwittingly at the mall with my skinny rich friend and she insists that I fault her in their Anthropologie, a place I can neither responsibly afford nor comfortably browse because everything is doll-sized and expensive, and no one here actually cares about anything I'm doing, probably because they can tell by my shoes that I am poor. But I know that if I pull something called a cropped draped anorak color warm buttermilk cost approximately $1,726 off the fucking rack, everyone in here is going to immediately stop whatever they're doing, ogling overpriced throw blankets knit from angels' delicate wings, or mentally justifying the purchase of yet another set of whimsical teacups, and their heads will swivel in unison to behold whichever form my shame is going to take today. Will my cheeks blush burning scarlet as I attempt to wedge my human-sized arm into the infant-sized sleeves, only to get irreversibly stuck, or will I ignore all the evidence that nothing here is made for my body and confidently stride to the register carrying a breezy wrap skirt that costs roughly the same as my rent past their chiseled, gawking faces, only to have my credit card be declined in a spectacular display of computer-generated shrieks and ominous beeps? Find out on next week's episode of the endless drama, This Is Why I Rarely Go Outside. So this concludes my 10 kind of 12 books to cheer you up, and I hope you can take one of these recommendations and feel better, because I think we're all having a hard time. But before you get cheered up, you can look at my social links down below. You can subscribe, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye guys.